Hi, all. Welcome to episode 3 of my Ariana Grande series. This episode I'm titling What Ariana Grande Survived. So, the purpose of this episode is not voyeurism, it's not a pity party, it is not trauma porn, it is context. I want to explain the years that I believe, or that Ariana has actually said herself, where she developed PTSD. I want to teach you guys a little bit about PTSD, and I want to name the arc from Manchester to trying to escape from herself during the Sweetener era, and then into running into Thank You Next and the 101 show tour. This string of years would have broken anyone, and understanding them helps to at least explain her behavior, not necessarily excuse it. Okay, but I just want you all to know that the woman you see today is a walking miracle. After looking closely at the things that she's been through, this kind of set of events would have broken anyone. And I think that she is, in a way, a hero because she's a woman who survived and crawled out of the wreckage. So with that, let's get started. Before we get started, I want to explain to you guys what trauma actually is, okay? Trauma is basically an experience that happens to a human being that is so severe that the body cannot process it. So it ends up getting stored in the mind in fragments. And those fragments act like sharp pieces of glass shattered throughout the mind. And they cause all kinds of symptoms, including hypervigilance, dissociation, emotional flooding, traumatic reenactment, unstable self-identity, and severe attachment issues. Judith Herman, in this wonderful book that I have behind me that I highly recommend you read if you have any interest in trauma and PTSD, the streets say that The Body Keeps the Score is the best book. This is actually the best book on trauma. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? So in this book, Judith Herman explains a very important phenomenon that I think you guys need to understand in order to understand Ariana, especially when you think of her in the context of, the events and the things that she's done that have been wrong. She says that trauma in many ways can mimic narcissism because a traumatized person is in fight or flight. They are in survival mode and they are trying to fight and hold on to life with anything that they can. And that can be read or come across or ultimately land, and the impact of that can be profound selfishness. And I think that that is something that is important to understand about Ariana. And I think that she understands about herself. I was actually just listening to Thank You Next this morning. She's well aware of that part of it. So I think that she was just surviving. It was fight or flight. And I'm going to explain why. So Ariana Grande is an extremely accomplished woman. I am not going to spend too much time on the beginning of her career. I just want to touch on the main points of her career that I believe created the groundwork for her to develop PTSD later in life. So in her childhood, she had an early attachment wound that was created by her parents' divorce. Ariana Grande said in an interview with Zach Sang that she did maybe 2 years ago that when she was growing up, she saw her parents fighting a lot. And when they finally broke up, she felt in her mind that she was going to have to do anything to maintain love so that she never recreates what she went through and the type of loss she went through as a child. This created an attachment wound in her mind where she would subsequently come to hold on to relationships for dear life. Anyway, then Ariana Grande was also a Nickelodeon child star. She wasn't as exposed as some of the other child stars like Victoria Justice and Jeanette McCurdy because her mom is pretty wealthy, and kids with parents who have power were not necessarily as exploited. However, she was subjected to, when she was on Sam and Cat and the Victoria Justice show, what I would describe as boundary erosion, where she was basically put in positions where she was inappropriately hyper sexualized in order for entertainment by Dan Schneider, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. And I think that what this is it's early conditioning to have softened and eroded boundaries so that you can basically make somebody do whatever you want them to do, and they kind of lose the ability to stand up for themselves. I thought about showing you guys some of the images from the Dan Schneider days, but I decided that you can Google that if you really want to. Subsequently, during her music career, she was managed by Scooter Braun, who is notorious for how hard he works his artists under a rigorous schedule. So, within the span of 3 years, she actually put out her three first album, Yours Truly, My Everything, and Dangerous Woman, and basically started the pattern of dissociation through work. But now we've come to what I would describe as Ariana's core trauma window, starting with the Manchester booming. Okay. On May 22nd, 2017, there was a boom that was set off after Ariana Grande's concert in at the Manchester Arena, leaving 22 people unalived and over 800 people injured, many of which were children. Ariana internalized this, I believe, as catastrophic guilt, and it introduced a concept that I want to teach you guys about in trauma called moral injury, which is one of the most severe types of trauma that a human being can go to. And what is moral injury? Moral injury is the belief that you caused harm or failed to prevent harm, and because of that, it shatters your moral identity and produces profound guilt, shame, and spiritual collapse. And it also can create a compulsive need to atone, which I think for Ariana, it's textbook evidenced by the fact that she insisted on Scooter Braun organizing and performing the One Love Manchester show, which was just a few weeks after the bombing. It gave her no time to process, no time to think, no time to allow herself to let the magnitude of what happened sink in. And frankly, that makes sense, right? Because like it's very, very hard to conceptualize something this severe. And at the end of the day, hyperfunctioning is in fact a trauma response. It is a form of avoidance where you overcompensate by doing a lot and filling your mind with different things and different things to do in order to silence the noise of all the pain that you're running from, in her own words, in Gucci tennis shoes. Okay. And it also sets up some dissociation and over responsibility. The next of Ariana's traumas during this period was her relationship with Mac Miller. They were on and off. They met sometime in 2012, and there was some rumor in like 2013 that she like cheated on her boyfriend at the time with him during the My Way music video. But they officially got together in 2016 and eventually broke up in May of 2018. But he was the person who she was with during the Manchester bombing. Unfortunately, Mac, while a brilliant artist and rapper, suffered very severely from addiction, which he later to succumb to in October of 2018, which we will get to. But being partnered with somebody struggling with addiction is in and of itself traumatizing, because this is a person who will be very unstable, who will oftentimes abandon you, who will keep you in a state of fear and paralysis, wondering whether or not they're going to live or die. And ultimately, that emotionally is incredibly draining and and deepens an attachment wound. And for Ariana to be so close to somebody like that, in the aftermath of the events in Manchester, well, I feel as if this relationship may or may not have been stored as trauma, even though it's very clear that they loved each other very dearly. Okay, but what did Ariana do in response to this? She does what she has always done, what she had previously done, which is throw herself into work and also throw herself into another attachment. She broke up with Mac in May of 2018, and then she popped up dating Pete Davidson in May of 2018, which is a relationship that she flaunted very publicly, and some would say perhaps to make Mac jealous. She subsequently got engaged to Pete in June of 2018, and then released Sweetener in August of 2018. And the nature of Sweetener, it made me wonder, especially because there's a song called Pete Davidson on it. Like, the timeline don't make sense because it takes a lot longer to produce an album. So I don't know if she was intermittently seeing Pete and Mac, but Sweetener itself, I was listening to it last night. That album is so emotionally detached that who even knows what's going on with her during that album? There's no way of knowing, because there's nothing really, it's not that personal, okay? But it's not that personal because she was dissociating, okay? Unfortunately, on September 7th, 2018, Mac Miller succumbed to his addiction, which likely caused a profound sense of grief and likely what I would describe as yet another moral injury in Ariana, because she probably felt a lot of guilt over the fact that, perhaps she did flaunt her relationship with Pete. And perhaps that caused Mac to sink deeper into addiction. But the thing is that that's not accurate. It's not her fault. His addiction was not her responsibility to fix, and it was his and his alone. However, the fans did not feel that way. They certainly tried to make her feel guilty and blamed her openly for his passing. Her relationship with Pete does not last much longer. They break up by October. But then afterwards, Ariana does what she always does, which was, again, what do you guys say? Say it with me, class. Threw herself into work. Yeah, exactly. She filmed some of her biggest music videos and some of her biggest smash hits during this time with No Tears Left to Cry and God is a Woman. And in addition to the full promotion cycle, she never stopped. She was going and going and going. And she was running and running and running and being pushed to run too, because again, Scooter Braun is notorious for overworking his clients, In Sweetener, she does acknowledge the Manchester booming. However, in a song Get Well Soon, which has a runtime of 5 minutes and 22 seconds with like a 40-second silence, which 5/22 is the date of the tragedy. So that's, she does acknowledge at some level of the album, but that's as far as it gets in terms of engagement. Then we enter the Thank You Next era. Thank You Next is an incredible album. I was just listening to it this morning as I was getting ready to film this video, and it is a chronicle of a woman in free fall whose trauma has completely taken her over, that is making her very erratic and unstable in relationships, making her be hot and cold. I found it so remarkable how it goes from needy into NASA, and then, it goes all the way through all of these different, very chaotic emotions, because that's the architecture of the inside of a traumatized mind. It is constant fight or flight. So things are in fragments, and you are running and holding on to, trying to find things to hold on to. It's the nature of her condition. But anyway, she releases Thank You Next, this wonderful album here, on February 19th, about 5 months after Mac's passing. One of the songs, like I mentioned the lyric earlier where she says Gucci tennis shoes running from your issues and In My Head, which is a great breakup song for Pete Davidson. But in my mind, I thought to myself, that's projection. Because she was the definition of being in Gucci tennis shoes running from her issues. Another very remarkable song on this album is Ghostin', which is an absolutely stunning and devastating tribute to Mac Miller, which she refused to perform and actually was forced to put out by Scooter Braun. Okay. During this year, this is when Ariana reaches like the absolute pinnacle of her career, where she becomes like a top pop girl, very much so. And during this morning, like again, in research for this, I watched this interview that she gave when she received the Woman of the Year award, where she said, it's really shocking that one of the best years of my career has coincided with one of the worst years of my personal life. It seems as if the pain started to catch up with her. She does not stop working. She does not stop working. She proceeds to embark on a 101 show tour that spanned 8 months, that lasted from March of 2019 through December of 2019. I think she actually performed 97 shows of the 101, which is a profound amount of show, not allowing herself a grief window, not allowing herself space to process her emotions. But at the end of the day, what ended up happening is that she was frequently breaking down on stage. These emotions would come out during her performances, and she was frequently seen crying. And I think that this was the time when the dissociation tactic and the dissociation through work tactic stopped working, and the PTSD really started to take hold. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what complex PTSD is. It's not in the DSM. It's been rejected a couple times. It should be in the DSM. It's very annoying. But what it is that it's it's complex PTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is caused by cumulative trauma with no recovery windows. It produces dissociation, unstable self-identity, emotional flooding, chronic shame, and cycles of traumatic reenactment. It's also, I would say, something that penetrates to the personality level. Whereas a lot of, psychiatric conditions are kind of imposed on top of a person's personhood, when you are a person with complex trauma, like, you fundamentally change. And I think it cracked her open. And I think that really does explain a lot of her behaviors then and also into now, because it takes a very long time to heal from these things. This is not something that you heal from in a year of therapy or something like that. This is a lifetime of personal work and dedication, a lifetime. And I will say this from personal experience. In any case, Ariana Grande on her IG stories released an functional MRI, which is basically a scan of the brain that shows the activity, because like the areas that are active will like take up glucose, and then it lights up on an MRI scan. And what her MRI showed was an extremely lit up brain, where all of the trauma centers, the amygdala, which rules the fear response, the thalamus, which rules sensory information, the basal ganglia, which is like non-declarative memory, and the anterior cingulate gyrus, which rules emotional response. All of those areas are overactive, and honestly, even compared, I saw pictures where her MRI was compared to a normal brain with just PTSD, and it was way more lit up. So it is very much clear that she is starting to recognize that there is something very wrong with her. There's something going on with her, and that she needs to get the help that she needs, which I do believe that she probably started therapy, likely because she had no choice, because her coping mechanisms of running away and throwing herself into work stopped working. And I just want to bring up the fact that, not earlier in the series, I did a video comparing her to, her journey to Taylor Swift. I don't think that Taylor Swift's trauma was ever severe enough to force her to stop working, which is why she's never actually done the personal work on herself. The work of actually healing is incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult and incredibly arduous and incredibly painful. So it takes a lot of bravery to embark on that kind of work. And usually people don't do it by choice. They do it by force. And anyway, healing doesn't happen overnight. After the Eternal Sunshine tour, she actually, probably starts therapy, presumably. And actually, she actually says it herself. Starts therapy, slows her life down, meets Dalton and looks for stability through him, and, joins The Voice. It seems like she's actually maybe even thinking about retiring from her music career. And the pandemic hits and she starts living a quiet life. And then she books Wicked. And I think that with booking Wicked, I think she realized that life at some level was always going to be unstable, and she needed to figure out a way to create the stillness and safety within herself, which I think has led to real healing, the real healing that I think that she displays in this Wicked era, and the sort of shedding of old patterns. I think that through Glinda, she healed in many ways and was able to become the woman that she was meant to be. So, in conclusion, Ariana Grande is a public figure who has experienced real complex trauma, and she's done it in the public eye. She survived more than anybody, I feel like, really, should have to, and that more than a lot of people would have survived, including myself. She endured catastrophic grief, moral industry, attachment wounds, and honestly, industry exploitation, and with no time to heal. I think that what we saw of her and what we even see of her now is the cost of the grind and the toll of fame with no window for recovery. And I think the woman that we have now is a phoenix of sorts who crawled out from under that and found a way to heal. So that's the end. This was quite a long episode, but I think it's a riveting story. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.